Until the end of the 1990s, fintech projects were delivered using what is commonly known as the waterfall method, the more traditional way of working within business and industry based upon analysing the requirements to designing, implementing, testing and rollout. Although the approach was and is exceedingly well structured, more often than not, stakeholders and customers were not happy with the end product. As the project conclusion was too distant, it would often be over budget, too late, i.e. out of time, out of scope, or the quality suffered due to pressure to meet targets. Thus people were not happy. Even when the project met the brief, was on time, within budget and scope and met quality standards, people were still unsatisfied. But why? Well, quite simply, the end product was not really what they needed by the time the project reached fruition. That is why in November 2001, a group of 17 software engineers gathered together in a ski resort in Utah, America, and created a set of alternative approaches, building what we now know as the Agile Manifesto, a new way of working based upon 4 values and 12 principles, rather than the predefined blueprint, the way worked pre-2001. The 4 values were individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a blueprint or plan. The 12 principles covered a wide range of subjects: customer satisfaction, embracing change, speed delivery, collaboration, empowerment, effective communication, good metrics, steadiness, operational excellence, simplicity, self-organization, and continuous development. In October 2020, Multitude began to incorporate an agile mindset, embracing changes to improve performance and reach a deeper client satisfaction. It was obvious that we would only be able to develop a hybrid agile as the way of working would not suit every area of the company. But we already knew that the 12 principles were not hard and fast rules for practicing agile, but principles to help instill agile thinking. The 12 principles describe a culture in which change is welcome and the customer is the focus. They were put in place by Multitude to assist in the development and alignment with business needs. Each of the 4 values are also key guides to the development and delivery of high quality work. Hello, my name is Ian Moore, Agile Learning and Development Specialist here at Multitude, and welcome to Module 1, the first of 2 Agile training videos giving you a foundation level entry into Multitude's hybrid Agile way of working. Every journey starts with a single step, a quote attributed to Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. And in this first of 2 modules, you will take the initial steps of your journey looking at Agile within Multitude, the roles, their functions, the structure and terminology used. Multitude works with what can be described as a hybrid Agile model. That is to say that not all areas of the organization are Agile, but everyone needs a basic foundation of what Agile is and how it works. In addition, it is a way of working that can be adopted on an individual level, should you wish. It truly is that hybrid. Having touched on the genesis of the model and its principles and values, let's look at the roles within Agile. There are 7 specific named roles, all of which play an important part in the structure. The first of these is a stakeholder, of which there are 4 main types: users, providers, influencers, and governance. An easy way to remember the four is with the acronym UPIG, or UPIG. The stakeholder is the ideas person, the one who sees what is required to drive the business and offers up the suggestion to be delivered. It needs to be highlighted that within the Agile framework, this is not restricted to leaders and management. Stakeholders can be anyone offering an idea, driving that topic which will directly or indirectly impact upon the services or products we deliver. Essentially, ownership and proactivity are key elements of Agile. The second role is that of tribe lead. This can be seen as a mini CEO or general manager. They focus on value creation, growth, and leading their tribe by giving clear understanding of an alignment with the vision of the company. We currently have 3 tribes within Multitude: Feratum, Sweetbank, and Capital Box. Thus, 3 tribe leads. A product owner is the outside eye, the voice of the stakeholder as well as the customer. Assigned to specific squads, the product owner is responsible for defining the work to be done, creating stories and prioritizing the team's to-do list, better known as managing the backlog. We will explain exactly what stories and backlogs are shortly. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the squad. How this is done may vary widely across organizations, squads, and individuals. For product owners to succeed, the entire organization must respect their decisions. These decisions are visible in the content and ordering of the backlog, as well as through the inspectable increment at the sprint review. So each tribe, and as you remember we have 3, is made up of squads with between 6 and 10 employees from different disciplines: IT, marketing, growth management, etc. These are the delivery teams assigned to a collective goal within each squad. Each squad also has a squad lead who plans and orchestrates work execution to build a cohesive team. And within Feratum, Sweetbank, and Capital Box, each squad is made up of members from a variety of chapters. A chapter, in simple terms, is a department. Thus, to use a sporting analogy, if you imagine a squad as a football team, each chapter would be an area of that team. So, for example, marketing could be the goalkeepers, growth managers, the midfielders, marketing, the forwards, and IT, the wingers. The chapter lead, as the coach of each area, would then decide, alongside the product owner and tribe lead, which in his chapter is placed in the team or squad. A Scrum Master develops the squad environment, allowing everyone from the different chapters to operate at their capacity while assisting with difficulties they need to overcome, known as impediments. It needs to be highlighted the Scrum Master is not a project manager. In fact, the less visible the Scrum Master is, the more effective the group will be operating. The Scrum Master is accountable for establishing the group by helping everyone understand Agile theory and practice, both within the group and the organization. Accountable for the squad's effectiveness, they do this by enabling them to improve its practices within the Agile framework, coaching the team members in self-management and cross-functionality. Scrum Masters are true leaders who serve the squad and the larger organization. As mentioned, we have several chapters: IT specialists, marketing specialists, growth managers, and so on. And it is the chapter lead, not unlike a football coach, who, to use the same sporting analogy, is responsible for building capacity in that particular chapter, as each member of the chapter will be part of a different squad. The chapter lead is also a promoter and ambassador of the new culture and way of working, bringing knowledge and expertise on specific topics developing this capacity within the chapter members. So, now we've looked at each of the roles within Agile, the question is, how do they work together? The small picture in its simplest form is relatively straightforward. However, the Agile organizational structure is a non-hierarchical system, which means the dividing lines are guides, not barriers. This allows a business to be more flexible and respond quickly to shifts and changes in the market environment. It is characterized by fast activity cycles, customer centricity, open communication, and a network of autonomous teams, squads, their squad leads, and scrum masters. Thus, this gives a clear example of how the flow within an Agile system works. It may look complicated, but believe me, it's like riding a bike. Once you know how to do it, it's very straightforward. First, it is a two-way flow, as the process is collaborative. Quite how that works, illustrated by the storybook, the running man and the burger, we'll come to in a moment. In brief, the stakeholder sees the need, and remember, we are all potential stakeholders as we all have ownership. The tribe lead feeds the need and liaises with the stakeholder and product owner who creates the story based upon that need. This forms part of a backlog, which becomes the work for the coming sprint. A sprint is a period of work. The squad with the squad lead ensures everyone is aligned with the project. The Scrum Master ensures the squad meets the Agile values, processes and practices, with the chapter lead ensuring the members of the squad from their particular chapter are operating at optimum levels. As you can imagine, trying to describe how this works is quite complicated. Essentially, it's like a play script. It is easier to understand when you actually perform the play rather than just read it. The same can be said of Agile. It is easier to understand when you practice the way of working rather than just read or hear about it. The core Agile team sits within the organization and is regularly provided input from two cohorts. The involved is the first outer ring and includes all of those who will regularly provide input into a particular project. The outer ring, the informed, are those in chapters or departments within the organization who need to stay up to date as they are best placed to provide feedback or input when necessary. And it is that staying up to date which is the reason for this Agile Foundation training. Wherever you sit within Multitude, we all need to know what Agile is. So now we have a grounding in the roles and structure, how does this all work? Well, Agile, even hybrid Agile, is a collaborative process and involves meetings called ceremonies, and there are 4 which are key to the way of working. If you recall, we used a storybook, a running man and a burger as icons for the 3 areas. These are integral areas of what is called a sprint cycle, a name given to a period of time, usually 2 weeks in length, within which Feratum, Sweetbank and Capital Box work. The running man represents the sprint, which eventually everyone in the squad becomes part of. The burger is the layers of tasks the squad commit to deliver in the sprint. And the storybook is the tasks themselves. So, as an example, the stakeholder has an idea. The product owner breaks that idea down into its composite elements and creates what are called stories. Almost part 1, part 2, 3, 4 of how to build or structure what is suggested. These stories are placed on the backlog, a to-do list, and from there the squad select what needs to be done and the sprint planning starts with the squad. During the usual 2-week time box, stand-ups take place regularly in some squads, daily, in others twice weekly, in some once a week. The sprint review is usually midpoint of the sprint, where what has happened during the sprint is reviewed and or the product or service released and examined. The final ceremony, the retrospective or retro, takes place at the end of the 2-week sprint, followed by the next sprint planning meeting, wherein the cycle continues. Maybe that is a little too much information too quickly, so let's just break it down. The ceremonies within Agile are not unlike a piece of sheet music. For those who don't know how to read sheet music, it looks very, very complicated, with bars, notes, staves, quavers, semiquavers, etc., etc., etc. To get to know the Agile terminology and ceremonies, like music, it is best to put it into practice, which is the intention of the modules. Everyone together with a basic foundation of Agile, leaving no one behind. So we're going to look at each of the terminologies and ceremonies in turn. An epic and a story. The storybook icon used represents a story. Each story is a unit of work to be done within the squad and is created by the product owner or, in some instances, the squad member themselves and placed on the product backlog. An epic is a large unit of work which is broken down into more manageable, smaller stories. A story should be written with a minimum amount of detail necessary to fully encapsulate the value that the feature is meant to deliver. It's an end goal, an increment, what needs to be done by the squad. The backlog is where the story is placed. Tribe leads and squad leads are the owners of their respective backlogs, thus they check and monitor them at regular intervals. The burger icon represents the product backlog, the list of tasks to be completed from which the squad prioritizes, allocates and aligns work to be done to create the sprint content. The sprint is a set period of time during which each agreed task in the backlog should be completed and made ready for review. Sprint planning is the squad meeting to agree the content of the sprint, where the focus is on what is going to be done within that sprint. Thus, the squad agree to a specific volume of work aligning with the product owner. Each sprint begins with the planning. The agreed workload is placed on the backlog canvas as sprint goals, and once agreed and in place, the sprint starts. It also needs to be highlighted that during the sprint, no changes should be made that will endanger the sprint goal. Quality should not decrease, and the product backlog is refined as needed. And finally, the scope made should be clarified and renegotiated with the product owner as more is learned. The daily scrum or stand-up is a 15-minute meeting held every day to discuss progress toward the goals. This cadence varies squad to squad, thus it could be 3 times a week, twice or even 1 meeting midweek. In a stand-up, usually run by the Scrum Master, every participant should answer 3 questions. What I did yesterday, what am I going to do today, and what problems am I experiencing, known as impediments. These meetings must be to the point and time-boxed. The sprint review is the period at the mid to end of the sprint before the retrospective, which we will come to shortly, where the product owner, squad lead and squad review and evaluate what has been done and consider the plan for the next sprint. The product owner presents the results of the work to key stakeholders and progress toward the product goal is discussed. During the event, the squad and stakeholders review what has been accomplished in the sprint and what has changed in the environment based on this information. All parties collaborate on what to do next. The product backlog may also be adjusted to meet new opportunities. The sprint demo is often part of a sprint review. It allows the squad members to present a project to the group, asking for feedback and discussing with the project owner and team any possible amendments in order to maximize the value. Such discussions can inform the planning of the next sprint and the contents of the sprint backlog. The sprint demo is a critical step in completing a sprint, an opportunity to excite stakeholders and customers, as well as a chance for developers to show off their work. This is a shared celebration of achievement that can often involve a celebratory beer or a glass of wine. The retrospective is the final element of the sprint where the squad inspects how the last sprint went. It is a reflective process. The squad discuss what went well during the sprint, what problems it encountered, and how those problems were or were not solved. They identify the most helpful changes to improve the effectiveness of the squad. The most impactful improvements are addressed as soon as possible. They may even be added to the sprint backlog for the next sprint. The sprint retrospective concludes the sprint and is usually time-boxed to around 90 minutes. And those are the main terminologies and ceremonies within Agile. But how do they align with one another? Well, as already mentioned, the 4 ceremonies sit together within an Agile sprint. So we have sprint planning, daily scrum or stand-up, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. The start of the sprint planning meeting is officially the start of the sprint. This meeting is held with the objective of selecting the product backlog items or stories to be delivered during the sprint. The product owner, scrum master, and the entire squad attend. The stakeholders can be invited, but this doesn't usually happen. The sprint planning meeting focuses mainly on 2 things. First, what is to be built, or the tasks that need to be delivered, and second, how will that be achieved? In deciding these things, the product owner presents a rough idea of the requirement, the features or the improvements needed. This helps in the selection by the squad of the items to be built or tasks to be delivered. The product owner presents the highest priority items from the backlog to the squad first. The squad then asks questions so they have a clear picture of what is required. This means the story, now created in more detail, can be broken down into even more manageable tasks. This may not be the case in all situations, however. Breaking tasks down helps in regard to the volume of work or sprint goals which are created. As the Agile values state, squad members should know that situations, conditions and requirements can and will change during the course of the sprint. Therefore, the squad shouldn't try to create a perfect sprint plan. Instead, they should put enough effort into an effective plan that confirms they have selected the right product backlog items. After the how and what part of the meeting is completed, the squad will revisit the sprint goals to agree if any changes need to be made following the sprint planning meeting. There are slight deviations from this model in Multitude's hybrid Agile. For instance, in some squads, the backlog is populated by the squad themselves, and the project manager also serves as a scrum master. However, this is the concept of the sprint planning meeting, which results in what is usually a 2-week time-boxed sprint with a series of ceremonies contained within it. To conclude, Multitude is hybrid Agile, some areas more Agile than others, some taking the best of Agile and utilising it in their own way. Everyone within the company needs to have a foundation of what Agile is. And in the second module, we will look at how you can move forward with Agile. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Should you need more details, please contact HR for guidance. Have a great day and keep rocking and rolling.